One of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs is, you can never join the dots.
Looking forward.
You can always
connect them.
Looking backwards. Every experience I've ever had has shaped me in some way.
Owning a company, being entrepreneurial and being a CEO. How did that happen?
Being the only Asian kid, not just on the estate, but also in school, I was just desperate to try and fit in. I had 14 attendances throughout the whole year. Right?
Wow, that is serious. So what picked you up then? I mean, how did you turn things around?
Young people my age were already at university. I'm trying to do GCSEs, right? I couldn't do it over 2 years because I had a big chunk of school missing. I found a master's degree easier than I found GCSE.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you ever in your wildest dreams ever imagine that one day you'd be a CEO of a very successful company?
I knew how to do business from a young age, right? I knew you had to purchase something, divide it up, and make more money off it. And I sleep well at night, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Against All Odds. My name is Daniel Koka, your regular host. And our guest this week is Mr. Ketan Dattani. Ketan is the founder and the CEO of Buckingham Futures. And Buckingham Futures is one of the foremost recruitment companies for environmental health services.
Absolutely.
Ketan, welcome to Against All Odds.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, Ketan, you've got a very interesting story because I know, we had a chat before this and you said to me that you basically were kind of going off the rails and it took somebody to sort of take you under their wing and set you on this path, to owning a company, being entrepreneurial and being a CEO. How did that happen?
One of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs is, you can never join the dots going forward. You can always only join the dots looking backwards. Yeah. So it was a series of different steps and pivotal moments in my life that led me to where I am now. But every experience is a good experience, and every experience I've ever had has shaped me in some way or form.
Mm-hmm. What was it like growing up as a kid? Obviously from an Asian background, a lot of Asian families, there's a lot of pressure to do well. I don't know what kind of background you came from, but then you've obviously done well in for yourself. But then, was there something that you probably picked up when you're growing up? Was there something at home? Some values instilled in you?
Certainly the work ethic. So my parents were refugees from East Africa, from Uganda, right? So I'm a first generation immigrant, and the work ethic at home was work hard, save, right? So that was a fundamental part of my initial growing up. And then, my parents were working all the hours God sent, really.
What were you doing for work? Don't mind me asking.
My dad was a bus conductor, and my mom used to work in a factory.
Wow. The very humble beginnings then.
Absolutely. Well, they left everything they had in 1972 when they were expelled from Uganda. Were newlyweds, came to the UK, start again basically. They had businesses and stuff there, but none of their experiences were at all valid here. And the only type of opportunities were cleaning, London transport, or factory work.
Okay. Right. And what was it like, for you growing up? And were you academic? Were you, kind of just chart your path?
Okay. So in primary school, I was actually quite academic from memory. But what it was being the only Asian kid, not just on the estate, but also in school. I was just desperate to try and fit in because everyone was either of a Caribbean descent or English descent around me. And so I was desperate to try and fit in. And so, yeah, in primary school, I was academic. Secondary school, I kind of got mixed up with the wrong crowd and missed huge chunks of school.
Okay.
So the academia, what I did have, completely slipped. I remember in the third year, so which I would have been at 13. I had 14 attendances for the whole year. Right?
Wow, that is serious.
Yeah. And with my mom and dad working, I was hiding all the letters from school, from the truancy officers, and I was just like covering my back, and really living a secret life, because I'd wear my uniform in the morning. They think, okay, they got at work all day. I'm back. My uniform's hung up, and during the day I'm just doing silly stuff, really, right? And and it only came to light when the probation services and police got involved. How far down the spiral I was.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So what picked you up then? I mean, how did you turn things around?
So from a very young age, right, we didn't really have much, and growing up in a sort of an estate where we just had a balcony. I used to spend a lot of time with my grandparents in Coventry, and from a very young age, I developed an avid interest in nature, because it's completely different to where I grew up. Burnt out cars and broken windows and racist graffiti and drug paraphernalia. That was normalized for me. But then when I used to go to Coventry, spend the whole summer holidays or Easter holidays and stuff with my grandparents, it was green open spaces. There were ponds. There were like birds singing, and there were bird species other than pigeons, and and it was really like, for me, it was an eye opener, and I loved that kind of feeling of nature, of without even, I mean, in the 70s, it wasn't even called the environment, or there was no such thing as sustainability, but it kind of drew me. And what I used to do, I used to basically, I got a book from the library. I learned all the Latin names for most of the invertebrates. I'd spend hours in the gardens and put them in different jars according to the genus they belong to. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was my toys, because we couldn't really afford toys. So, and then at the end of the day, like, I make sure there's enough oxygen holes, and at the end of the day, I'll release them. Then I started to, I got a net one summer. My granddad made me a net. So we used to go and go to the pond, and I used to collect aquatic invertebrates, amphibians, through various stages of metamorphosis. But again, this was before I got more mixed up in the wrong thing. So the turning point really was that I was involved in a situation whereby I had to do 120 hours of service, right?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's serious.
And during that time, I discovered a colony of great crested newts, which is an endangered species.
Okay.
So this is why I said to my probation officer, look, this is an endangered species. We can't actually clear this area out. He thought I was trying to get out of the work. Yeah. So then I kind of escalated it to the local museum. And the next day I came, the whole area was cordoned off. Yeah, and we had to continue the work. We had to paint church wall. Okay. So that was the pivotal moment in my thing. Like, I knew that I had a passion for something, and being from an Asian background, most of my cousins now, even my younger cousins, at school, college, university, doing GCSEs, and here I am,
doing community service.
Yeah. So, but it was that moment that kind of, it was a spark to say, right, okay, I want to do something to make a difference in the environment, and I need to get back into academia in order to do that. So. That was the kind of the turning point. And then I went to college, wanted to do GCSEs, but the GCSEs they were offering was a 1-year retake, which meant you had to have sat GCSEs and failed in order to do them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they said, and now I'm in my late teens. I should have been, young people my age were already at university. I'm trying to do GCSEs. Oh. Right. So I couldn't I couldn't do it over 2 years.
Okay.
And then went back the next day. Same thing was said to me, that you've got to do it over 2 years. However, I went back a third day, and I met this gentleman called Dr. Theo. He was the head of science, and he gave me the opportunity. He said, look, okay, I'm going to let you do this. Don't let me down. And that was the turning point where I did my GCSEs, and then I did the A-levels. It was Theo actually that encouraged me to go to apply to university. It was very alien to me, like in my immediate friend circle and stuff. It's a big word, even, like university, right? I don't know anyone who's been to university in my immediate circle. So, and no one from my area had been to university. But Dr. Theo Kwanje encouraged me and applied to university, and ended up doing a bachelor's degree in environmental planning and management. Worked in the laboratory for a year after that as a trainee medical microbiologist. And then there was something in me, because I wanted to be out there in the field making a difference. And that's what my passion was, particularly working around with endangered species. of captive breeding and reintroduction program. So I went back to university to do a master's in environmental planning and management. So that was a kind of but the thing is, Daniel, in the whole story, right, I struggled with my GCSEs because I had a big chunk of school missing. I found a master's degree easier than I found GCSEs.
Really?
Yeah. I did.
Oh, okay. So at what point did you then, would you say that it sounds like your interest in the environment was kind of from a pretty early age. I mean, it sounds that way. So it looks like your progression, even when you studied at university, was kind of aligned.
Absolutely.
You know, at what stage did you then realize that there was a gap in the market for providing the kind of services that you do? Because until I met you, right, I'd never even heard of, agencies providing services for, in the environmental care space, and it was a strange thing to me. How did that come about?
My own experiences. So, upon completing my master's degree in environmental planning and management, I must have applied for 1,000 roles.
Wow.
This was before email, so you actually physically had to fill in the application form and post it off, right? And just didn't hear anything back. So I took up a role in recruitment, which was medical recruitment. Just to kind of, because look, I had to the master's wasn't cheap. I had to pay back things, and I was surviving on a Saturday retail job.
Wow.
So it was difficult for me. So I took up a role in recruitment, and very quickly I started to recruitment. It can be lucrative, right? But my passion was still for the environment. And what I did realize is actually, so what I did is do a test. Not that I took it up on anyone, but basically I applied for 10 roles, but I changed my name on the CV. So I used my same initials, but instead of Ketan Dattani, Keith Draper applied for these roles. Same CV. This was before automation and everything, right?
Yeah.
But out of the 10 roles that Keith Draper applied for, which Ketan Dattani already had, Keith Draper got 8 interviews, right?
Why? Wow.
So now this was in the 90s. So things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
But it was that point that I realized there's a gap in the market, and there's probably lots of individuals that have got environmental qualification and a passion to work in the environment, but there's no one that's providing their service. Now I've got 2 years of recruitment experience. So I approached my employers at the time and said, look, I think I've got an idea here. I'd like to start something new. And they were a great employer. However, they said, look, we can only encourage you to do something, start a division, and we can see that potential in you, but it's got to be within the space of medical. Yeah, because that's what we do. And this is taking us away from what we do. Absolutely. So that's when I've branched out, I've gone to another agency. I've had like 3 recruitment roles, that was 2 years and 7 years and 7 years. So a total of 16 years before setting up on my own.
Okay. That's very interesting. What that tells me is that one of the things I've picked up talking to people like yourself on this podcast is that you need to master your craft.
Absolutely.
Okay. And
passion always prevails.
Yeah. So can you tell our guests a bit about that experience? The fact that you took your time, even though you had the passion, you kind of knew where you wanted to go. You took time to almost go through an apprenticeship, if I can call it that, to...
Not knowingly.
Okay.
To be honest, I took something that came up. So again, like I was saying earlier, the dots now, looking back, is easier to join. But at the time, I just thought I want to just get any job where I can, and keep looking for work within the environmental sector. That was my initial plan, right? Still do field work even now I do a lot of field work, but voluntarily, like tree planting projects, litter pickups. I do, for various organizations. I ascertain how carbon efficient they are when they have events and stuff like that, and I work that out for them. So I still work within the environmental sector, but on a voluntary basis. So I didn't actually start medical recruitment with the idea at the time that I'm going to do environmental recruitment. It's only sort of 2 years in that I saw, okay, look, I'm now doing recruitment. And now I'm up against people that are fresh out of uni as well. So my qualification experience now is 2 years old, right? In 2000 now, it's 2 years old, isn't it? I'm competing with people straight out of uni. and I'm gonna have to take a significant cut in my salary to even think. But it wasn't a competitive, even playing field, because a lot of these are red brick universities that now started offering environmental courses, right? And people were looking at your academic background prior to that as well. So employers were looking at, okay, is it privately educated? I had big gaps in my CV, right? So I just struggle with that, and that's why I kind of put the two together and approached an a recruitment business with the idea of starting a division.
Okay. So what was it like when you eventually branched out? Did you already have clients lined up, or
on my own? You mean?
Yes, on your own. Yes.
To be honest, like again, it was never a long-term plan. I like to see kind of almost an accidental entrepreneur, right? Because the idea was this was it's around 2013, 14, I'd like to say, right? Sorry, latter part of 2012 actually, because what happened is that my youngest son had started calling. I was working in a corporate role in the city for a great company. However, my wife had sent me a WhatsApp message, showed me him calling, and this WhatsApp had just started. And that it was a Tuesday. I remember really well. It hit me so hard that
you're missing out on those moments.
Yeah, like I felt like a weekend dad, because I used to see my two sons. I have 4 children now, but at the time I had 2. I used to see them in the morning and then asleep. I'd come home from work, they'll be asleep again. So I felt like a weekend dad. And that was when I thought, okay, because I did ask to work from home, and pre-COVID days, it was frowned upon, especially because I was head of division. I was expected to be there. But there was a big social element of it, entertaining clients, all that. So it wasn't just say 8 till 6. It was, 8 to 8 or 8 to 10, 8 to midnight. And the next day you got to be back on it, traveling into the city.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me take up a step back for 6 months to a year until he starts university, scale my life down in terms of my expenses and stuff like that, so that I could just be part of this kind of growing up process. Because 2 weeks paternity is 10 days. That was gone, right?
Yeah.
And so I just thought to myself, let me do this for a short period. And actually my plan was, which again, now I know, you shouldn't have a plan B, because they're almost setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
But my plan B was to go back to my employer and say, look, I'd like to come back.
Okay.
But I just wanted to have enough to cover the bills and stuff in between.
Yeah.
And be, just enjoy fatherhood and have these moments. But after that period, it just like the clients started to come in, get new opportunities. I couldn't no longer operate out of a box room at my parents' house. I needed staff and stuff like that. So it kind of just happened. So my initial plan to go back to them never really happened. And that was 11 years ago.
Wow. That's quite a journey. So the name Buckingham Futures, I mean, where did that come from? It intrigued me a little bit.
Okay. All right. So Buckingham. So I was thinking of a name. And when I was working in the recruitment sector, a good friend of mine was working in waste and recycling, and I was his consultant. And the company, without giving them a plug, right, was called Green Futures.
Okay.
And that stuck in my mind. I like that name, Green Futures, right? The future stuck in my mind. And a couple of years later, when I was setting up my own company, I said, I need futures, because it gives, what we provide at Buckingham Futures is a future, right? And Buckingham, really, I wanted something to, have something that people would remember and sounded a bit authentic and regal, and what's more regal than Buckingham Palace. Yeah. So really and truly, there's nothing too exciting. That's how Buckingham Futures, the name, was born.
Okay.
Initially, it was people were asking, that would like to work with you. However, it appears you only operate in Buckinghamshire. So that's when I was thinking, but again, that's no longer the case. But when I first started as a one-man band, people were thinking, oh, we can't work with, because he only works around Buckinghamshire. Yeah.
Actually, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah,
I thought maybe you lived around there, or you're from there, or something like that. Okay.
So that's how the name came about.
Okay. So what are the kind of jobs that exist in the environmental services gig?
I mean, they've varied from entry level right through to senior director level, head of service level. So we work with local authorities, central government, and then private sector consultancies. The three models that we have are interim, so projects will be done on an hourly basis, and we'll pay the consultant to do that work. The other model we work with is we actually bid for work, we do tenders, and we take over the service or like a gap in the service, and we'll manage the whole project in its entirety. And our third one is permanent opportunities for headhunting.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the the services that we provide. But the client, as I say, range from central government, local government, and the private sector consultancies.
This sounds very much like you've kind of established yourself in that space. And what are some of the challenges that you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
So look, 24 years I've been doing this right now. And so going back to your previous question, the type of roles are food hygiene, health and safety, environmental protection, private sector housing, pest control, licensing, carbon efficiency, sustainability, waste, recycling, contaminated land, air quality. So it's really varied, and each role comes with its own set of expertise and qualifications. The challenges I face, I mean, like the generally we don't really have challenges as such, right? I mean, I like challenges, but and this is what keeps you from becoming complacent. But generally, the type of challenges it's bureaucracy with sometimes with local authorities. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork, and it's quite time consuming. So it prevents us from doing what we want to do at ease and at speed.
So, Ketan, what inspires you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? I know you're a family man, and you're into your fitness and all that. Well, what inspires you?
Every morning I wake up and I'm inspired, right? If I wake up and look, if my heart is beating, right, God's given me another day. So He's given me another day to make a difference. I'm on this earth for a reason.
Yeah.
That's an inspiration. I want to make my parents proud. I wanna do right, and I want to actually make a difference in the world. That I don't just want to be come and gone, right? So it's the day I was born and the day I die, and then there's a dash in between, right? So every day has to be counted. And now, being someone who's going to be 51 soon, right? This is Q3 of my life now, isn't it?
You don't look it.
Age is nothing but a number.
You don't look it at all.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I thought you were kind of. I mean, you did say you had 4 kids, but I thought you were late 30s.
Let's shake hands on that. Well, yeah. So basically, that's my inspiration. I'm in Q3, so I need to make a difference. I need to, and I'm the nucleus. I've got children and I've got parents, and I'm the kind of bridge between them. And that if I wake up in the morning, my heart is beating, the sun's gonna rise. No matter how dark the night was before, the sun will always rise, won't it?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So if everyone's healthy around me, life's gonna throw challenges, but these are things that I can deal with. As long as everyone's healthy, I'm healthy, and I'm happy. And it's a mindset, isn't it? How you tackle these challenges. So, I have that zest for life. So that's what inspires me. And to be able to make a difference and, to share my story, because some people, you don't know who's going to resonate with, who's going to see it. And, and I've been through different experiences in life where someone may be going through now and can't see a way out, right? And there's always light at the end of the tunnel. As I said, there's always, no matter how dark the night is, the sun was always going to rise in the morning, isn't it?
Definitely. What, I was going to ask you though, what do you think about this podcast and what we're trying to do?
I think it's amazing, because these are the kind of conversations that need to be had. So I find you very inspirational. And when you reached out to me, I was, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I was like, wow, quite taken aback. Because you're someone I follow, and then you reached out to me, and I was humbled by that. So I do appreciate this opportunity. This podcast is amazing. Your guests all have come from different angles, but quite a lot of shared experiences. The theme is similar, right?
Yeah, definitely similar.
Yeah, and actually, I want to ask you, how do you choose who to invite onto your podcast?
Well, So initially, when I started, it was kind of friends and family.
Okay.
But then that quickly dried up, and then I went onto LinkedIn. I look at people who are doing unusual things.
Okay.
People like yourselves, and you're definitely doing something very unusual. And then when we spoke as well, and you told me that you had kind of come out of a gang, truancy lifestyle.
It was a very long time ago.
Very long time, I know, yeah. But that I found inspirational, because believe you me, there are people out there whose lived experiences are what you went through, and you've been extremely successful. I know you, but you've been extremely successful, and I find that inspirational. The fact that, and that's the very theme of this podcast, that it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, what can you tell us about that?
It really doesn't matter where you start. So when I got to university, I created a barrier first semester because I felt that nobody really understood me, right? And I was still living in the same area, and this is the first time in my life where I've had people that didn't look like me that wanted to help me, lecturers and stuff. And my dealings prior to that were, teachers, probation officers, truancy officers, and police, right? So, and also you've got to remember, at this time I was different. I had gold teeth here, and right. I didn't even smile for the first time. I used to talk like this because. So,
sorry,
and I didn't fit in. But I realized that I didn't fit in because I wasn't letting myself open up to new opportunities.
Okay.
So, and then I just started. So the council estate was in here, not in real life. I was bringing that with me and creating barriers for myself. And that's when I realized that actually the opportunities are there. You've got to find them. Yeah. And people are people. And people have the different experiences. And just by the nature of people, just because I grew up it was very hostile for me, as a very young child, like on a daily basis, there would be racist taunts and, racist attacks, being spat at. Even my mum used to get spat at when we used to go shopping and stuff like that. So coming from that, I had a really like a barrier, like, like, I'm not taking this anymore. And all of a sudden people are friendly and I'm like, why are they friendly?
Yeah.
What did they want from me? But it was all in there, and I actually started to embrace different cultures and different opportunities. And you know what? It's my mindset is so different now. But again, would I change anything if I'd go back? I mean, I would change the fact that what my parents had to go through, all right? But would I change my own experiences? No, because it's made me who I am.
I like that. So did you ever in your wildest dreams ever imagine that one day you'd be a CEO of a very successful company? Did you ever, on a council estate, ever see that happening?
Nah, not at all. I knew how to do business from a young age, right? I knew you had to purchase something, divide it up, and make more money off it, right? So I knew how to do that.
The principle of it.
Yeah. And also, if the more you have, the more of a network you have, you have, distributors and stuff like that. So I kind of got business from a young age. But now my business, I sleep well at night, right? And it's on a much larger scale, and it's corporate. So I didn't really see, because my mom and dad, my dad especially, his idea of success is get a job. Firstly, once in my life, my dad actually told me, he's not a very vocal person, but the day I graduated, he said to me, 1996, said to me, I'm proud of you, and that meant a lot, because I wasn't being the person he was expecting. And then when I graduated with an environmental biotechnology degree, at the graduation ceremony, he looked me in my eye and said, I'm proud of you, and I'm surprised you shocked me. And that meant a lot.
Okay.
And but no, I didn't. So even then, when I was doing the degree, I thought, okay, I'm going to work in a laboratory, wear a white coat, and do some, testing of I don't know, like contaminated land
And
or
stuff like that.
and stuff like that. Yeah. So do some tests. But then I worked in a laboratory for a year, realized it wasn't for me. It was very mundane, very repetitive. and it wasn't out there doing what I wanted to actually do and make a difference in the environment. So it's every step, like, no, to answer the question, absolutely not, no. I mean, just getting a job was a big thing for me. Then becoming a principal in that job was even a bigger thing. Then actually becoming a supervisor, it was all these steps. Then becoming a head of division, and it was like I was pinching myself, like, what's actually happening? What's God opening up all these paths and my belief system and my spiritual beliefs kind of let me go with the flow and start to follow my instinct. But no, definitely no. I mean, if you told the 17-year-old Ketan that this is like, I would say, go away, man. Like, like it wasn't even part of the trajectory. Like, it was, there's too many levels and layers between that and that it didn't seem possible. But, the top of a mountain is always at the bottom of another mountain. So if you see that mountain and that's your thing, you don't then become complacent, but you start planning ahead when you even get to that mountain, because the next mountain's there, right? Yeah. So everything's another step. And, I'm far from the finished product. Okay, I may be 50, right? But I'm far from it. I'm just starting. Yeah. And I'm doing stuff in the UK. I'm doing stuff in India. I'm doing stuff in East Africa, West Africa. I'm doing the opportunity is abundant. And I feel that the mission now is starting to gather momentum. The sustainability, the environmental awareness is really gathering momentum. And there's no one that's a decision maker that looks like me. So when I'm in these meetings, I feel like I'm coming with a different angle to other people, because they have the best will in the world, but they've privately educated and they've gone to Oxbridge, Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, these type of university. I don't think they're connected as much as I am. But yeah, I am in a decision-making scenario, but nobody looks like me apart from the people that are serving me. I want to open up that table so other people are making these decisions that look like me. And more females and more people from disadvantaged backgrounds and more people of color, because it's something that needs to be talked about. So when you invited me on this podcast and I saw your theme, I was like, okay, absolutely. And it's completely resonated with me.
Yeah. So Ketan, I mean, something else that I've noticed is you're a bit of a fashionista. You have a brand. Okay. There's no way I could let you go without asking this question. What's the story behind the refined brand and the look? What's the story behind it? Okay, the gold teeth are gone now, but
truth of the matter is, we grew up with very little, so I couldn't afford clothes. And when I say we used to hand me downs, or most of my clothes were from jumbo sales or hand me downs. I used to be throughout primary school. Secondary school wasn't not so much, because you have a uniform, everyone's kind of, you can't really tell, right? Yeah. But primary school, my clothes would be several sizes too big, or I'd have patches on them and stuff like that. So, people used to laugh at me. So being the only Asian kid, wearing clothes that they deemed trampy. So as soon as I could actually afford clothes, I started to create my own individual style. Okay. Right? That's the thing. So I grew up very... Yeah, I mean, we didn't, my cousins used to sometimes mock me. My older cousins say, okay. I said, oh, that's a nice Sergio Tacchini t-shirt or Kappa hoodie. And they said, yeah, well, wait 2-3 years, it'll be yours. Sort of thing. So, and then, as I say, jumbo sales and Salvation Army and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I was kind of... So as I say, when I started to accumulate a little bit of money, I used to spend money on clothes because it made me feel not poor.
Okay. No, you've got good taste.
Thank you.
Good.
Likewise.
Good. Yeah. So we have a tradition on this podcast. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I go to the next question?
I think we've covered a lot.
We have covered a lot. Yeah, in a short time.
And the questions I wanted to ask you about, your why, how you started the podcast, how you identified the guests, we've already covered.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this podcast?
So just coming up a year, and I started by accident. I was in Portugal playing golf with some friends, and then I suddenly realized that, or it came across my mind that there are people out there, ordinary people who are grinding, but then making an impact, but whose stories nobody's necessarily capturing. And might never appear in a diary of a CEO. Okay, but they still got a story.
Absolutely. Everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story.
And you can learn from everyone. If you have that open-mindedness, where you actually learn from It doesn't matter age, it doesn't matter ethnicity, gender, anything, right? If you have an open mind, you're going to learn from it. You know, it's a case of what value can I add, but what can I learn as well, right? When you meet people.
Yeah. You know, so that was where this was birthed. You know, I just said, I'm going to start. I had my iPhone, I whipped it out and a tripod. And the rest is history. But now we've got a fully equipped studio.
It's an amazing studio.
You know, and I didn't pay for anything here. It's just people who like what we're doing and said, no, we'll support you. 100 quid here, 200 quid here. Company bought the MacBook that we're using to record and stuff like that. It's just been a journey of growth and fulfillment. And I get so pumped up. I'll tell you what, my thinking now is so different to when it was when I started. I mean, I don't think limitation anymore. I think
the limitation's in there.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's here. And I know this podcast will do well. And for me, it's not even about the numbers of viewings and all that. It's about the quality of people
absolutely
I get to meet.
And one thing I've learned from being a podcast guest a few times now is that you never know who's watching and who's picking. So randomly, I've met people other parts of the world, other parts of the UK, say, "Oh, watch that episode of yours, and that particular thing really resonated with me," or with my son, I showed him, you know. And so it's about being a little bit vulnerable, sharing your own experiences, and you never know who's listening.
You never know who's listening.
Absolutely.
You never know who's listening. We also have a tradition on this podcast where we give our guests the opportunity to dedicate the episodes that they feature on to anyone or any group of people of their choice. And you can look at the camera for that. You know, who would you like to dedicate this episode to?
Actually, I don't even need to think about it. My mom. She's the one person that believed in me when I was, you know, I wouldn't have even believed in myself. I was just like, my mom's been through a lot, right? She's had debilitating health issues for as far back as I can remember, but she's the most positive individual I know. And she always believed me every step of the way. She was always encouraging me, and she always saw the good in me, where I didn't even see the good in myself. So shout out to my mom.
Fantastic. Ketan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute delight, you know, just listening to you. I love your energy.
Likewise.
I love your style. I love your authenticity. You're so authentic. I mean, you haven't hidden anything from us. From a council estate, you've been through truancy, but you've turned things around.
Well, this is what I say to my children, you know, as a father of 4. I mean, authenticity is key. And I've learned that at every different stage of my life. Be you. And what I say to my children, look, be you and do you, because everybody else is already taken. And you can only be the best version of yourself. I could never be the best Daniel, can I?
No.
Or you could never be the best Ketan.
No.
Right? You can emulate, but you can't. So if you're doing you, and that's why I was so desperate to try and fit in growing up. And by being that, I was losing myself in the process. As I've embraced who I am and actually, you know, my own authenticity, it's attracted to the different people. It's opened up so many different doors for me. My mindset has changed, and I don't seek validation, right?
Yeah.
I'm not here for the likes or the clout. I'm here to basically seek validation from within and from up there.
Fantastic. Ketan, you're very humble as well.
Thank
you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for making this possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.